Hi,
Hi,
welcome
Susanne.
to the Widest
Hi.
Orbit.
Hello.
How are you?
So, I'm good. So,
Good.
what are we discussing today?
Well, we're going to continue with discussing the film Hereditary, and
Hmm.
we've kind of focused in on a little bit the transmigration, if you will, of Pamon through various family members. Started out in Charlie, and in our previous video, we watched the scene where Annie, the mom, channels Charlie or Pamon, right, with her family. And then we have a few videos for today. And the one we're going to pull up and start with is
Yes. So,
the,
before we do that, so in the previous discussion, we discussed a little bit about the vulnerability of Paimon.
right.
And we have something even more interesting in that department with this with these videos. So let's watch them and then we'll discuss.
Sure. All right. So, that being said, all right, here we go.
I'm not going to do this with you anymore. No, no, it's not helpful. You are sick, Annie. I need to call the police.
That's a quick.
That's that when I first watched that, I really did not catch that Annie in that scene is becoming possessed, maybe
Mhm.
for the first time, fully possessed. So
Right.
after this scene, Paimon is in complete control of her body. But when I
Right.
first saw that, I thought that she is losing her mind because that
Well, she
smile,
is.
yeah, she is, she is. But I thought she's just, but yeah. So this is the turning point. From this point onwards, Annie is no longer Annie. She is Paimon,
Right.
and yeah, uh, and Paimon is in her body, but the ultimate aim for Paimon is to be in the body of Peter. And that is because Paimon has to be in a male body. And
Right.
that's the hunt since the beginning. And
Right.
that is
So,
sort of the hereditary struggle of this family to begin with. So, yeah,
right.
so this is the turning point. Poor Peter also. Oh, sorry. Poor Peter and poor
Yeah.
Steve.
Oh, yes, for sure. So I trying to remember how old Charlie was, maybe 13. Um,
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
so, I think we talked last time of just about, how it was supposed to have went down and it didn't. So Pamela ends up inside of Charlie, through Grandma Lee, the sort of high priestess, if you will. I know they referred to her as Queen Lee at a certain point. And now we're working towards getting Paimon where he needs to be. And it does seem as in the film with the various things that in order for Paimon to serve the cult in the way they desire, he needs that or wants, desires that male body. And so my assumption is that, the end goals of the cult have yet to, haven't been realized this entire time Paimon is inside of Charlie. So that, their rewards, if you will, have been delayed for those many years. while Paimon was inside of Charlie.
So are they keeping him in Charlie as a temporary abode?
That's a
Because
good question. Whether it's a matter of the cult controlling that, or whether
yes,
it is, by virtue of whatever rituals were done, with Grandma and the cult, that Paimon entered Charlie's body, and Paimon, I think you and I have talked about like how much of what's going on is really the will of Paimon versus the will of the cult. Could Paimon
and
have
that
exited? Right? We
and
don't know.
and that is a very interesting question, and I don't think that the movie has been seen from that angle, or the movie has been studied from that angle. And the angle I'm talking about is whether Paimon is really free.
Right.
So the general assumption would be that Paimon is controlling, or because Paimon is a spirit,
He's a king of
uh,
hell. He
he
is
is one of
one of
the
the
eight.
nine kings of hell, right? So,
So one would assume that he is in control, but
right,
one doesn't know that. And what if the the cult is really in control of him?
right,
And what the question to me, the interesting thing that this raises is his vulnerability, right?
right,
And it also goes back to the commentary on the good and the evil, and how good and evil are not uh, dichotomies necessarily, but could be interlinked.
right,
So,
right,
so there is an element of Paimon sometimes, or in some, when the film is read in a particular way, there's an aspect of Paimon which is quite human and vulnerable. And so I
right,
think that the question that you were raising about whether Paimon is actually free, in fact, raises those questions. And so
right.
that's an interesting thing. But I think we were led to this with the other question, right? So far, Paimon has been in Charlie's body,
Mm-hmm.
but why have they kept him there? Were they waiting for
Right,
Peter? Yeah, those are the questions that
right. I
come.
mean, it's not I don't believe the film answers a lot of these questions clearly. So it's all, your speculation and, any kind of knowledge about magic or such. But it would certainly seem that um, you know, Paimon is desirous of the male body, and that it was promised to him by the grandmother in the cult. Um, had to, rest in Charlie for, like we said, roughly 13 years. And again, that raises all kinds of questions like, has he been happy to be there? Has he been
Exactly.
confused? Is he, in a sense, a prisoner? Because, certain kinds of understanding of magic with
Yes.
spirits or demons, demons,
Be-
um, you know,
Because because 12 years, 13 years is a lot of time for
right,
uh, a spirit to be waiting when it can go elsewhere, basically.
right.
And so, yeah, that's an interesting question as to whether he is free even in Charlie's body. And he
Right,
does look like a very bewildered and confused spirit. I would say that. He does look
right,
confused often. And this is
right.
especially brought out in the scene at the funeral where Charlie is looking at the grandma very confused and scared.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that small conversation that they have, the mother and the daughter have afterwards at home, that
Right,
also indicates, I think we've talked about this, that also indicates that confusion. So
right.
is he trapped? Is Paimon a victim? Which would be an interesting take
Yeah,
to on
right.
this.
And if not, if victim isn't the the best word, even
Maybe
a
not.
slightly unwilling participant, right? Is he subject to laws, if you will, such that the cult, the grandmother, they are manipulating those laws in order to exercise
Hmm.
control over him because they have clear aims that come through in the film. And at the same time, the scene we just watched, all right, so you've got Annie, clearly is still largely Annie. She appears to be herself, the mother. She's frantic. This is after she's realized what's happening with Joan, and she realized who Joan was. She had seen the photo albums and such, and she's trying to appeal to her husband, who is just clearly not inclined towards any kind of metaphysical, spiritual, or anything. And, she's convinced at that point that she can have an effect on things if she'll burn that book. And, he refuses to throw it in. So she threw it in and it burned him. And in that scene we watched, she's terrified, she's crying. And then that kind of auric thing that shows up in the film in different ways, as kind of like lightning-ish or something. It swept over her and her face can change completely. And
Could the book be a sign for the bond between the conjurer or the priestess and what has been conjured or what has been promised in the ritual?
well,
So,
it's the sketchbook. It is the Charlie's sketchbook. And if you remember the scene where the book is lying on Charlie's bed and the faces of Peter
oh,
appear. And so I
right.
think in Annie's mind, by burning the book, she's
The,
somehow
the
going to prevent something from
the
happening to
sequence,
Peter,
right?
right?
Because there's a sequence of events
Right.
that is being drawn. So
Right.
if you interrupt that sequence
Hmm.
through the burning of the book, then probably Peter would be saved. So till that point, Annie is being working in the best
Right.
interest of Peter till
Hmm.
that point.
Right.
Um, and then and then in a way she has to be uh, possessed because otherwise she is a big obstacle
Right.
unless she is taken out by in a way slightly more grotesquely because she's being taken out by being made the medium through which Peter would be possessed.
Right.
So
So
yeah,
it's now that you say that, because we're gonna watch that next clip, but as Annie as Annie, she whatever her flaws and shortcomings, she clearly loves her child and she
yes.
doesn't want harm to come to him. And so I think in the scene we just watched, that was sort of her last attempt to,
Last year.
to make a change happen. And she obviously failed. And now she's being controlled. And I think this is again a question. Paimon has entered her in that scene we just watched, but that's where the question again is this really Paimon's will that these things happen? Or is this the cult exerting their power over Paimon to do
Because
these?
yes, because the cult seems to know the sequence of events
Right. That's
that is
why they're
supposed to.
around every corner and hiding in the closet
Yes,
and
yes.
outside.
So even if it is Paimon's will, that will has been clearly charted out. They know this will quite well,
Right.
and obviously Annie is being dragged into this by Joan. Uh, since their first meeting in that grief
Grief. Hmm.
meet. Since
Right.
from that time, she is being dragged into this. And so, yes, that even if that final act by Paimon is his own will, um, his will is quite well known to the group, to the cult. So,
Right.
uh, yeah, one wonders if there's another thing that I wanted to point to. So there is also a sad self-fulfilling prophecy here with Annie, because
Right.
I think she always felt like she was always doing her best, but always failing
Hmm.
when it came to her kids. And and that's the image that she has left with
Hmm.
their kids. So
Right.
the image that she has left with Peter, which he can never quite take away, because she says, no matter how much I explain it to them, there's no way to explain this. Um, so sadly, that's the last image that Peter has of his mother, as a
Right.
threat rather than as a
Right.
protective being. So um, that's an added sad, tragic
Right.
dimension to this. I think that yeah, that's the last image that she leaves on Peter,
Right.
as this as this negative force.
Right. Because
Yeah.
what follows that scene we just watched is, her, well, Peter gets a little rest upstairs, but when he wakes, that's that great scene where she's
Yeah,
up in
that's
the
what
corner and
yeah,
she tortures him from there
she,
on and torments,
yeah,
chases, he's terrified, he's screaming, "Mommy." I mean, it is really sad. And I think we discussed this between you and I about how when so pre in earlier in the film we learn when she confesses to Joan, but then she also has one of her nightmare sleepwalking events happen about when she had doused her children with paint thinner, I think. And then
exactly that. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
so she's carrying that around, this guilt and this sort of feeling of futility that she can never get her children to understand, that wasn't who she really was. And yet here what how unfolds is, in a way, it's just this reaffirming it for Peter, right? This thing that he has been afraid of and been believing, even though I think you and I talked about how uh, on some level, subconscious, perhaps for Annie, was she had some awareness of that her children were in danger. And perhaps in her attempt to burn them alive, that was a way she might have been trying to save them from a worse fate, right? But she failed.
yes. And so, in her own way, although this would be a, a terrible way to save them, but because she knows that this is something that we are also going to discuss, uh, so she says that she does not know much about her mom. So
Hmm.
at the funeral, she says that she does not know, because her mom was a woman of secret rituals, secret friends.
Right,
We know what she is alluding to,
right,
but it looks as if she does not know,
right.
because it takes her some effort to really find out what's happening.
Hmm.
So that may not be it might be an unconscious repression we discussed.
Right,
So in that, at that subconscious level, she might know
right,
what is happening, and she might know subconsciously what is in store for Peter.
right,
And so at that level, she was maybe trying to save him, save them
right,
from what she knows deep down is happening to them or will happen to them. So
right.
yeah, that's an interesting take, I think. Yeah. And then um, I also think that um, he apologizes uh, to Annie while he is running. So
Hmm.
in his mind, she is angry.
Right,
And so yeah, that's also sad that
right.
that's the story that's going on in his in his
Mhm.
mind, that she really is out to get him and he is in danger from her because of their shared past. And so
Mhm.
that's a tragic
Right.
dimension.
And
Yeah.
there's, other scenes like say one of the early scenes where he asks to borrow the car to go to that party,
Yeah.
right? Just
Yeah.
just their interaction, it's very clear that there is a dysfunction there. And
Yes.
moreover, that Annie has a tendency to be childish, narcissistic. I'm not sure what the best word would be, but she's snarky, she's hateful to her son, and then manipulates the whole situation and forces him to take Charlie to the party that ends up killing her. And so again, there's a way in which there's a question about, you know, how how ignorant is she truly, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Or how much does she actually end up playing into the goals of the cult because of her own issues, right? Just her.
Which also means that the psychological and the occult are not separate things.
Not at
They
all.
could play into each other.
I think so.
So if one were to read this film psychologically, that's not reading it, not looking at the occult angle to this. So they can both go together. That's an
Right.
important thing. So what you just said is really interesting, and this makes me think about a lot of things in the film differently in interesting new ways. That is that without knowing, her issues could have played into what the cult wants.
Right.
And it's sad that the cult leader is her mom.
Right.
And it's impossible to extricate oneself from something like that. So, um, yeah. I mean, the more we discuss this, the more the title of the film becomes
Oh,
that much more
absolutely.
meaningful. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I do think it is
So,
multi-layered, and
absolutely.
can be
Absolutely.
approached in many
Yeah.
ways.
Did
So,
you did you notice one other thing, which
mhm,
I just want to bring up so that I don't forget? Paimon, when we look at his image, and we don't even need to go outside the film, even that image, the one we get one image of Paimon when she opens that book.
mhm.
Um, it's not he's not scary. He's not
Mm-mm.
uh he doesn't look uh like a malignant force.
Right.
He actually
The
looks
heads, except for the
huh?
little heads, right?
Yes,
Elizabeth
that's there.
has
That's there. But
little heads.
otherwise he looks like a uh like a like a small he looks vulnerable is what I'm trying to say. He looks
Right.
like a vulnerable being. Even
Right.
I mean that's not the image of a demon in the usual sense. It looks like
Right.
a vulnerable being. Yes.
Right.
So and as we go into go to the next clips, this element will keep coming back. The
Right.
whole vulnerability and weakness of Paimon.
Yeah.
So yeah. So maybe we could go to the
Sure. Yeah. Let me get that one ready. And okay.
there's this there's this interesting theological movement that I really love.
Uh-huh.
It's especially uh, led in some ways by John Caputo and by Gianni Vattimo, and it's called weak theology.
Hmm.
And in weak theology, especially in Caputo, the idea is they emphasize the weakness of God, that God is really weak.
Mm.
And to them, the really eventual dimension of God is the fact that he's not a forceful presence, but rather a wispy,
Right.
weak, soft thing. And I somehow, so that's theology, but if this could be called, I don't know, uh, so that's theology, but if we were to think of even Haemon in those weak
Right.
theology terms, I think it fits. So
As sort of
just
fragile, vulnerable.
that's the
Um,
word. That's the word. Yes.
yeah, no, I think I understand exactly what you mean. And there's some quote that wants to come to me that's not coming right now, but maybe it will. But it has to do with and someone who said that they whisper, right? The
Mhm.
spirits whisper. They don't shout. And I mean, obviously
That's a
there's
good
ways
one.
in which we think they're shouting in this film, my goodness. But I think that takes us back to our question about how much of what is happening is the will of Paimon and how much of
Mm.
what is happening is the will of the cult.
No, just yes, absolutely. But to go to the whisper, the jingle that Paimon comes with. So one
Right,
hears that first. That's
right,
not, that's a weak sound.
right,
Using the word in that sense, in the sense of
right,
fragility, softness,
right,
that's not a gong which
right,
pierces our eardrums. It's a
right.
soft, to me, that's in some sense more scary
Yeah.
rather than,
And
yeah.
it makes me also think of that line, it's the biblical line about those who have ears, let them listen, right? So
Absolutely.
things that aren't, screamed, if you will, you have to be in the right modality and be receptive.
Yes.
So,
Yes. Yeah.
all right. So this scene, um, this is when
Mhm.
Annie's fully possessed, and yeah, she has chased Peter up
Yeah.
into the attic. So I'm gonna get that going and let it go large screen. Here we go.
Just gotta wake up. Julia, just gotta wake up. Come on. You're okay. Just wake up. Wake up. Come. Ah!
Hmm.
All right.
There's more to this scene, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So um they cut it off 10 seconds, 5 seconds too soon. Because as you recall, immediately what we see is that little light orb come from the attic, float down to rest upon or inhabit Peter, right? And so Paimon is clearly inside of Annie at that point. It's a question to me, how did she get inside the attic, right? Because the door is locked and she had been banging on it. Maybe she came in through a window. I don't know. Um, but yeah. And I always see in that close up of her as she's sawing, they do that one close up, an homage to Carrie. Because if you're familiar with Sissy Spacek as Carrie, there's a scene very similar, close up with the lighting like that and the blood. But there's the cult members right there in the attic, right? So they're everywhere. And I also wonder, did he die in that fall? Right? Did Peter actually perish and then he's revived by Paimon entering him, or is
Oh,
he okay? Right? I mean, because
oh,
he's
that
gonna walk, he's gonna get up and walk, so he didn't break any bones, I don't think.
I don't know if he would have died, because then I don't know if Paimon can enter
Right,
into a dead, because then they don't have to do all this. They could just have
right, right,
killed killed him before, and then but so yeah, he might be alive, but that's quite a risk that they are taking,
right.
given that this male host is so important to them.
Hmm.
I just wanted to know, from which scene do we actually start seeing the cult members all around the house? Because I remember,
It's
like,
actually kind of early on. It's fairly early that we see two of them standing naked outside the house. I'm trying to
Mm,
think. That could be the scene where we also see Annie sitting in the car, and Peter shows up on his bike, goes inside, and Annie drives away. That could be because it's an outdoor night scene, and you can see some cult members
oh,
standing.
that scene. Okay. So
They're
they've
standing
scouted this
naked.
out quite well. They know
Yeah,
what is going to happen.
right.
And
They seem to
uh,
know from the funeral, right? That same man,
yeah,
right,
yeah.
that Peter saw. We didn't see that scene, but it's between the two we just watched, where he sees that blonde, large man downstairs in a closet.
When Peter sees his father and then turns around, and
Yes.
yeah, I
Mhm.
remember that one. Yes.
But they've been
So
around because
they
he was at the funeral. That man was at the funeral looking at Charlie in a very, that's a weird little look he gives her when she's standing
Yes,
at the casket and he's smiling. You're like, it's a funeral. But
yes.
yeah.
What does that mean, though? Why did he that seemed like a smile, which said, okay, this is we know what's coming,
Right.
or
It's like, okay,
that's the
well,
kind of,
mhm. Yeah.
we
A
are on the way
knowing,
to something.
a knowing smile, there's a
Yeah.
plan of action. And it's not definitely not included in the film in any way, but I've often wondered if Lee's death was
Mm.
somehow needed. Okay, so think of it like this. Lee promised Pamela a male body, couldn't deliver. So perhaps the cult and Lee make a deal, right? Okay, well, here, take this female body, and eventually we're going to get you the male. And, to make up for our failure to give you what you want up front, Lee will die. And I don't know. It's just an idea I've had that somehow Lee's
Yeah, no,
death.
no, no. It does make sense, because, and there are two possibilities in which this makes sense. One is she has to die so that Annie gets unhinged.
Mm-hmm.
So that has to happen if all this has to happen. So her death, because in a way, she goes to the grief meeting. I don't know if she goes after I mean, she does go after Charlie's uh, death, but I think she goes, yeah, yeah, she goes after.
Initially, she
Uh,
goes after her mother dies. That's
that's
where
when,
first time at the grief
and we
meeting.
see Joan in that meeting.
Right. And then when
So
she goes back again, she doesn't even go in. right?
She
Because
doesn't
Joan
even go in.
stops her in the
Right,
street, and that's when she
right,
gives her the phone
right.
number, and you know,
So
so it
all
does
that
seem
is, yeah, and all that is dependent on grandma dying. And
hmm
then I don't know what this means, but there's something about she has to also be a sacrifice, like a
right,
bodily sacrifice. Her head has to be
hmm
offered to Paimon. That element
right,
is also there. So I think you're onto something with that idea that because then that explains the smile that okay, uh,
right.
grandma is dead. Step number one has been accomplished. Step
hmm
I don't know how she dies though, which would be interesting if she was if there's anything in the letter that she leaves to Annie, and
Right,
if there's anything in the message on the invite to the funeral, if there's any
right.
information.
Well, one interesting thought I had about the, you know, that aspect of things is it does certainly seem as if Joan has moved up the ladder, if you will, because Lee is dead. And I have, questioned whether what unfolds once Lee is dead is really not necessarily the plan that Lee had, and that
Had because
the cult is now acting because remember that pole that takes off Charlie's head has the Paimon
it
symbol
does.
carved into it.
Yes.
So,
So as soon as grandma dies, things are sped up. And you're right. So grandma herself might have been a stumbling block for the cult because
right,
this is family for her.
right,
It's not family for Joan. Joan doesn't
right.
have to care.
Right. And if you
So
remember the letter that Annie finds that her mother had written her, I mean, it's vague and everything, but it does say you'll see one day that it's all worth it. Well, really, if you're headless and dead, I don't see how you're going to see anything.
but from her point of view, she maybe
Right.
thought that, from her
But I do
perspective,
think
that may
it can go with this idea that Lee's intentions, whatever those may have been, aren't really what's unfolding once Lee is dead. Once Lee is dead, it's possible that the cult is now sort of, making determinations, right? Doing rituals. They're carving Paimon symbol into telephone poles. I mean, putting Lee's
no.
body in the attic,
So
right?
right. So Charlie's death definitely is because of the cult, because that's what it means to have that symbol on that pole.
Mhm.
Um, Steve's death is also because of the cult. I mean, by that time they are inside the house. They are orchestrating a lot of this.
Right,
But if Lee were in charge, maybe she would have tried to do all this without these deaths.
right,
And maybe that would have been impossible.
right,
I mean, Lee might have thought it is possible to do that, but maybe the cult knew better. And it could then be that the cult actually had to get rid of grandma.
right.
It's
I mean,
not
it's a
impossible.
question, right? So it's hard to
Yeah.
say. Um, who is really in control of what is happening, right? And how much of it is the original plan versus,
Yeah.
ad hoc, decisions and new routes being taken. Um,
And this might be a stretch, but um, Paimon slash Charlie is definitely unhappy about Lee's death. The guy is smiling, but she is not smiling.
right,
So maybe Paimon was better treated by the grandma than by Joan. And
right,
Joan and the new management is more they are more manipulative than grandma. That is
right.
also a possibility. So yeah.
I have a thought I'm going to share after we watch that final clip
Okay.
that
Okay.
goes with something you just said, and I had never thought of it before until this moment.
Wow.
So, but
Amazing.
but yeah. So shall we go ahead and watch that last one? It's brief. It's the very final minute
Yes.
of the film. So let me get that pulled
Have
up.
you there's before we start, I mean, there's a playlist um on Spotify for this movie, and
Mm,
the music
mm,
that basically accompanies the entire scene. I think the entire scene, at least the cabin scene, the music is called Reborn,
mm-hmm,
appropriately, because Paimon is being reborn.
mm-hmm.
And it's it's a very ambiguous and scary piece of music.
Yeah, the horns.
And someone in the comments to not to the Spotify one, but I saw this comment on YouTube. I play this also on YouTube. Somebody said in the comments that this looks like a victory music in hell, and it looks like it, it's like a joyful music but sinister, and it's
Right.
an interesting combination. So I just
Yeah, because of there's some dissonance in the
yes,
tones.
yes.
But that actually goes right along with the thing I
What
just
you
made.
Oh, awesome,
Yeah,
awesome.
so this is
Okay,
it's coming together in a very cool and weird way. Um,
interesting.
all right, so let's go check that one out.
It's my favorite scene in this
Oh
movie.
yeah, oh yeah, it's great. Okay, so
Yeah.
let's go find it. Here we go. We got that going. Okay.
We've corrected your first female body and give you now this healthy male host. We reject the Trinity and pray devoutly to you, great Payman. Give us your knowledge of all secret things. Bring us honor, wealth, and good familiars. Bind all men to our will, as we have bound ourselves for now and ever to yours. Hail, Payman! Hail, Payman! Hail, Payman! Hail! Why do you kill?
It's a hobby, really.
And I'm not sure why the person that made that clip decided to change the music.
It could be
Uh,
copyright reason.
Probably.
Yeah.
So we didn't get to hear the dissonant horns, and
Yeah, we didn't. Yeah.
I really would have liked to have lingered on that final image, right? Um, so he looks, as you've noted, he looks freaked out. He's like confused, and that was a short clip, and right before that, she's reassuring him, right? When she takes the crown off of Charlie and puts the crown on him, she even calls him Charlie. You're okay now, Charlie.
Interesting.
You
Hmm.
are the great Paimon, and telling him who he is, right? And you're okay. Everything is okay now. And then, you've got that final scene, which I think most people, at least in American culture, see that as a twist on the manger, right? That's
Yeah,
like a manger, like you have
absolutely.
Christ, and then it's clearly this alternate thing, um, with Charlie's decapitated head behind him, and then him wearing the crown with all these supplicants, his dead
Hmm.
mother, his dead grandmother, headless there, and Joan. It's Joan, right, who's in control at that point. And what occurred to me for the first time when you were talking a little bit ago, if we consider this idea that Lee's death brought about a change in sort of the cult side of things and what was happening and who's in power and who's in control and who's in charge now with Joan, it immediately made me think of the adoption of Christianity by the Roman Empire. So that, I mean, again, this is all speculative, but it could have been that with Lee, there was a vision. Obviously, they wanted money and power. There's no doubt about that. But like we said, once Lee dies, whether she was necessarily needed to die or not, and Joan assumes authority, right? It's possible that it shifted what was supposed to unfold with Paymon's incarnation, right? And so, yeah, I mean, there's just the manger idea, and then this idea that maybe things didn't go the way they were originally planned, right, with Lee. And so Lee, in that sense, may have been sacrificed, if not literally, right, then in another sense, her vision, right?
It's an interest. It's really interesting what you're saying about the Roman Empire taking over Christianity,
Right.
because the one thing that happens historically is the message is completely changed,
Mhm.
and the change is also interesting. The message now is about authority and violence.
Mhm.
And that's exactly what we see. I mean, both. So Joan's authority, all
Right.
the people standing naked around the house, they are like really like, I don't know, I don't want to call them robots, but they are just
Right.
um, following orders
Right.
on the pain of death, perhaps.
Mhm.
And violence is really easy for this cult now.
Right.
Steve, Joan, sorry, Steve, Annie,
Mhm.
it's Charlie.
Right.
Uh, but then what is interesting is when she speaks, it's completely maternal,
Mhm.
but that's the opposite of what they've been doing. So the
Right.
message and the beauty of the message is standing on blood at this
Right.
point. So that's a really interesting, and it's only because of the Rome thing
Right.
that this actually comes up, even the
Right. Well,
contrast. Yeah,
and we don't know of any violence or death happening prior to
prior.
the grandma's passing. So,
Though it does, but it's interesting. It happens in an interesting way, in that the father, the grandfather, and the uncle, the brother,
brother, yeah, Annie's
Annie's
brother.
brother.
Right. And
But they
again,
are not.
that's speculative.
That
It's
is
Annie tells us this history, and
right,
the
right,
viewer draws
right,
that
right. And it to me, I don't know if she said it or whether I interpreted it this way, but it looked as if at least the brother, it was suicide.
right.
Father, I don't. Sorry, grandfather, I don't remember.
Starved himself
But
to death.
right, so suicides. Now,
Mhm.
yes, uh, this has happened because of Lee, because of what she has been doing. But that's, in some sense, in a way, that's innocent. What I mean is, she believes in what she believes in, and she's trying to do something through that, and it has violent consequences. It's bad, but this is gangster like. This is
Right.
this is
It's like a different level, right? It's
it's at a
taken it up.
different level.
Yeah.
Yes. So, but at the same time, when she talks, especially with Peter at the end, it looks like it's such a maternal scene.
Right.
It's such a touching. Her voice is so
Well, if you recall, it's the same voice that she used with Annie when she stopped her in the parking lot and first met her, right?
Yes,
So
absolutely.
it's manipulative, it's soothing, and if you thought she had good intentions, you could say it's loving. But given what we know about her, we've already seen her use that method,
Yes.
right? Of manipulative and let me, oh, I care. And
Mm.
yeah, so I mean, we're all, obviously they're speculating about things that the movie doesn't make clear, but that is something I thought about is how she
No,
really
that's a good.
stepped up. She really
It's
moved up when Lee died, and
and
you know,
she from the pictures, it looks as if she was the second in command
right.
anyway.
Right. Lee was the
She was,
top dog. Right. Yeah.
yes,
Lee's the one
and
in the photo that's having all the gold coins poured on
she is
her.
the conjurer technically.
Right. Yes.
So
All, what is it? Even in the book, it says all gold or all something
to
to
the
the conjurer.
conjurer, yeah,
Right. It's
all the
about
wealth
money.
to
Mhm.
the, yeah.
So
Now, the scene itself requires commentary. Her explaining all this to him.
mhm.
So we have some thoughts about that too, right? We have
Right.
discussed. So
Yeah.
one thing we discussed is it looks as if he he definitely looks bewildered.
Right.
He has an identity crisis because otherwise she wouldn't otherwise she wouldn't call him Charlie.
Right.
So he doesn't know where he is. He doesn't know who he is. And he has to be, everything has to be explained to him,
Right.
including his name and his identity, his who he is. So
Right.
what does that tell us,
Well,
you
it would
think?
seem to, and I mean, my one thought was that he has existed inside of Charlie for 12 or 13 years and didn't even know who he was, right? That he didn't even know he was Pamon. I mean, that's what I think from that final scene, because she
Oh,
addresses the person as Charlie and then says, Charlie, you're okay now. You are the great King Pamon. And I'm like, okay, well, unless he just forgot who he was because he changed bodies, or did he exist inside of Charlie for 12 or 13 years with Lee as sort of, caretaking and overseeing, and he not even realize who he was? And just that's a weird idea, right? That there's this king of hell spirit
because
inside of someone.
because usually, see, this is an interesting inversion. So in possession, in actual possessions and in films about possession,
Mhm.
the priest. Now, so when the priest is engaging with a possessed person
Right.
and trying to exorcise the spirit, the
Mhm.
demon, and so on, the thing that the priest needs
Mm,
from that entity is the name of the entity.
exactly. Mm,
And that's what the entity will not give you.
right.
Because once it gives you its identity, it has lost its power. And I mean, especially in the Catholic
Right.
tradition, where exorcism is uh, most uh, most practiced and also has is advanced in its. I mean, they
Right.
have knowledge of. So uh, the idea there is that once we know the identity of the
Mm,
demon, then we know which saint to invoke,
right.
which
And you can command them when you know their name.
you can command. Yes, here we see the exact opposite happening,
Right.
where we are not asking for the name of the possessing entity, but we are telling the entity its name.
Who they
So
are. Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, so that's an very so it's an odd thing that Paimon really does not know who he is, because
Mm,
that means that he's not in that sense if we take the traditional explanation of these things, he
Mhm.
is not that powerful in that way if he
Right.
does not know who he is. Because his power, the power of an entity, is that it knows its name, but it will not tell you. So that secret is its
Right.
power. So, but if he does not have a secret, then the hypothesis that we have that the cult is in charge of a lot of this is makes more and more sense now when we think
Right.
about these aspects.
And another thing she says at the end, I'm not sure if it was in that little clip or not, but
Mhm.
you know, because they're going to give, you know, Paimon requesting, you give us honor, good familiars, wealth, knowledge of all secret things. That's what she says. You give us
Yeah,
knowledge.
she
And so
does.
one thing that occurs to me is this idea that the spirit, the entity, the demon, the king of hell, whatever, that if that entity is merely a means for the
Right.
cult. Like if somehow it's not that Paimon possesses in his mind right there inside of Peter, that he could just start just
Yeah.
spewing out secret information, but rather by having that spirit inside of a male body, there might be some sort of elaborate rituals or magical practices that this cult can carry out and somehow gain this secret knowledge, and I don't even mean by extricating it from Paimon inside of Peter, but more like Paimon is a tool
Mm.
potentially to be used to gain this secret knowledge. It's just an idea because honestly, Paimon in that scene and mainly throughout the whole film really doesn't look to know much of anything. Okay, it's
Yes.
just
Yeah.
yeah, and so it's just so strange, it is very different, and I like the movie in that regard that it's quite different in how it's presenting the spirit.
So in that sense, it looks as if the cult will be successful
Hmm.
because, I mean, generally one would, just from experience of how these movies or these stories go, one would expect uh, the cult ultimately to not get what it wants. All this was a terrible mistake. Uh,
Hmm.
but in this case, it looks as if uh, Paimon, they might have won. In that
Right.
sense, they
Right.
they can really use him
Right.
as a medium, which is a big thing to be able to do. And in the traditional understanding in Western magic, is the conjurer often in control? Does
Right.
he have? Is it that way?
Right. Well, certainly in some traditions and in certain texts, and I was trying to think of the name of a particular book that I have read because my cousin owns it. It's a much older book, and it has all of these
Is
sigils.
it
72. It's based on the 72. Is it called the
right?
72 Keys of Solomon? So it's all 72 of those spirits, and it has, their sigils. It has the description of what it is they're good at because
Is it that book? It starts with the name Abraham. Abraham.
no, no, it's a different book, but it's tied to that one. It's newer. This is a book I want to say was written in the 50s, the 1950s. But yeah, the idea is that the magician, okay, so the first point is you have to truly be like an adept, and you have to understand what's going on in the rules, and it's very rule driven. And basically, if you conjure the spirit and you're doing things in the proper way, the spirit is bound to your will. So, and again, in that final scene, she says that, right? She that
But she says she puts it in a mutual way.
Yes.
Like,
Oh, as we are bound to yours forever, like basically, as we are bound to
yeah,
yours, that
yeah.
all other people will be bound to our will as we
I
are
was
bound.
wondering what the reject the Trinity aspect was um because then because if or the manger, if that's the scene, so
Mhm.
what they're trying to do is an alternate version of the
Right,
Christ story. So that's why
right,
they said that, I think. So
right, absolutely. And and again, he's a king of hell. So, there's these explicitly Christian or anti-Christ, if you will, like, and satanic things going on, but rejecting the Trinity is a key part of that. But the good magician knows how to manipulate the entity and utilize them. And so again,
even
that's
the
why
king, even one of the eight kings of hell
yeah, isn't
can
that
be.
crazy? Yeah. And but so it's interesting if you look at this, I think you and I did once look at it, not
Because
together, but the keys of Solomon and the hierarchy of these kings, and there's lords, there's a hierarchy. There's the kings of hell, there's like lords, um, lesser
yeah,
king, and they all have their respective powers, that things they're good at, things, the knowledge they possess, but they also are all in control of lesser demons at to varying degrees. So, in the Keys of Solomon, it'll say, this particular spirit commands 72 legions, right? Or this one commands 33 legions. And so it's an interesting
but
idea.
but in the Western tradition, I have not seen. So there are eight kings of hell. So where is Lucifer in this hierarchy? Where do you think that Lucifer comes?
I
Lucifer
don't
is one of those.
Well, Lucifer is not even in the Keys of Solomon. Okay,
Okay,
he's not one of them. So I don't know. I mean,
because what I was trying to say is he is not easy to. What you can do is you can sell. You can do a transaction with him. So, for example, in the Faust
right,
story, you have to give him your soul, and then he will do things for you, and he
right.
will. But
Hmm.
then it requires that selling of the soul, and in no way are we in control of this. He is big,
Right,
and
right. Yeah. But the
he is
spirits
not.
in the
Yeah,
Goetic magic, in the Keys of Solomon, those spirits, it is purely transactional. But also the magician, if they're doing it right, has a great deal of control. And so that's why, when we were talking about thinking about this, whose will is actually being done here
right.
about this film. I don't believe it's Pamon's. I mean, it's a question whether these kinds of spirits have much of a will in the first place.
Oh, okay. So they're already not
I
because
mean,
I follow this I don't do you know of this it's now a book as well, but it was a YouTube series called Exorcist Files
hmm,
by Father Martins.
no, I'm not familiar.
And he speaks from a real life experience, and
Mhm,
he's a traditional Catholic priest, so he comes
mhm,
from that perspective, and to him, all this is real. And I mean, he is he's completely traditional in his understanding, which
right.
is interesting. He
Yeah.
says that most of the entities that he has encountered,
Mhm.
they're just small demons. You don't
Right.
Satan is too much. I mean, that's
He's
you
busy.
have sorry,
He's too busy to mess with
he's too
people.
busy and you can't as well.
Right.
He is. And so the demon that is giving you all this trouble is a small demon. He is
Right.
nothing in
Right.
comparison with Lucifer, and so I don't know where Paimon stands in that, but if he is one of the eight kings of hell, the cult has done a good job in and
Yeah, conjuring him. Mm.
yeah, because
It,
I don't think one of the eight kings of hell is an easy is an easy
right.
spirit,
Right.
so
It also brings to mind, so say in the film, The Exorcist, in the novel, William Peter Blatty novel, um, and other movies that have been done. Uh, when a priest or whoever interacts with the possessed person, the spirit will say that they're not alone in there, right? And in that
No, that
moment, I am
it's
legion,
also right.
right?
It's
So
also in
there's
the Jesus story about there's an Jesus. I don't remember the town, but he
mhm,
exorcises a person who he asks for the name, and he or they say that their name is Legion,
right.
and yeah, they're
And so
not
that
alone, and
yeah. So
yeah.
that again, like Pamon, I don't have it right in front of me, but we could look it up if we wanted, and we could look up exactly how many demons he commands. It's so many.
That's a good point. That will explain a lot of scenes also. I mean, for example, like we've discussed this. So was Annie possessed by Paimon? Because
Right.
then there's a problem, because if she is possessed by Paimon, who possesses Peter? Because they have to be possessed till they reach the treehouse.
Right.
So for that one
Oh, you're
minute,
talking about how her body floats,
yes,
right? Yeah. No,
yes,
I think we did talk about that because I said, oh, it's possibly one of his legions carrying her,
yeah,
right? And
yeah.
the spirit. I mean, again, I'm not claiming to be an expert, but based on what I do know, like that spirit that has control over the legions of other spirits, yeah, they can send them to do all kinds of things, right? So,
So in one of the Gospels, I don't know, I think in Matthew, Jesus says that when a spirit leaves a body,
mhm,
it's scared because it had a home and now it's homeless. And
right.
he says that the spirit then goes into the desert, suffers this journey,
Hmm.
and then it does not like it outside, and so it comes back. And
Hmm.
when it comes back, it sees that it remembers how nice this house was, and then it goes and brings its friends. And
Mm-hmm.
those friends that it brings are much bigger than it.
Right.
So one has to. So Jesus in that story is saying that once you have done the exorcism, that's when you have to be more vigilant, you know.
Right. It's
So
also, I think, at least for some people in perspective, one of the dangers of the Ouija board, right? So the use of that it's the doorway idea. So, you think you're playing around, you call upon something. There happens to be say a low level spirit around, low level demon, but you open the door, you let them in. Well, now they're going to run out and tell all their friends, right? And they're
that
going
there's
to
an open door.
go,
Yeah,
yeah, so they're
that's
going
what
to
an
come
ant
back.
does. That's what an ant does, right? So if it sees food, it goes and brings
Right,
its
right.
friends.
That's actually,
Yeah,
yeah. And so,
yeah, interesting.
if it's one of the lesser ones who has in a hierarchy, then going to go tell the boss man, and they
In
might
the
all.
right in Father Martin's book, he says that possession is covenantal, in
Mm,
that it's not really about an entity entering into a space. It's
mhm,
more about a contract
mm,
that has been signed with a, a spirit,
mhm,
where the spirit has a legal right, and this is, I think, uh, I mean, legalistic language, but it kind of makes sense. So the spirit has a legal right to be in that body now, because you've invited it in and you have given it that permission. So it's not like, so even if there is a spirit right here next to me,
right,
unless I it can't do anything to me unless I give it that legal
right.
permission. So that's what
Mhm.
a Ouija board does, I think, that that invitation now is a legal contract, a
Right.
covenant.
And
And so
it's
exorcism is the breaking of that of that covenant, the
by
undoing of that contract.
other legal means, if you will, because that's the
Yes.
thing about magic. I mean, and certainly what appears to be happening in that film, and certain kinds of goetic, and it is logical, if you will. There's a logic to it.
Yes.
There's transactions, covenants, legalities. It's not just willy-nilly randomness. And
No.
I think that's where a lot of people might misunderstand what really constitutes entering into a covenant with a demon.
In this case, it looks as if Paimon has entered into a covenant, meaning it's from his, I mean, he also needs something, and it's a very specific thing which they can give him, which is this male host. So
Well, and that's where I wonder if, for example, because again, in the like goetic or certain kinds of magic, the spirit doesn't actually need anything. But if you know the proper invocation and you say pay the fee, if you will, the spirit is now obligated to perform. So that's my understanding of what it has happened with Pamon. I don't think Pamon was sitting around.
that makes a lot of
Or
sense.
he wasn't
It
sitting around
also,
on the couch waiting for somebody. It just they did what they were supposed to do that causes the contract to kick in, if you will. And so that's why I was thinking about he's really doesn't have much will at all or power here, other
because
than
he has entered in this covenant, and now he
right,
has to,
right.
yeah,
So, and
yeah.
again, that's tied to like uh certain forms of practice that require a sacrifice, right? The idea is that
But if this may be just to go back to before the sacrifice point, if Paimon does not, this is potentially a stupid question, but if Paimon does not honor this contract, who is going to enforce it? Who's going to
yeah,
punish him?
exactly. No one. I mean, but that's my understanding of like a goetic tradition or certain forms of magic is that it's like there are laws that are inviolable. And whether these are like cosmic laws or laws of physics, I don't really know what's the best way to
No,
think.
it does make sense though,
But
because
you know,
yeah,
it, just to be silly, if I draw the circle in the right direction with the right amount of salt, and then I say the right words, right? Something specific's going to happen, which that shows up in this movie insofar as they get Annie to recite something she doesn't even know what it means.
and that is what seals the deal with him.
Yeah.
With
So
Paimon.
I'm like, there is a way in which at least a lot of traditions of magic it operates on laws, like almost like laws of physics or something. And so, A, B,
So
C, D, and E,
so
and
then
yeah,
right. So then the contract, covenant, these are good metaphors to
right.
understand it.
hmm
Yeah.
And it's not so much that there's someone who's out there going to enforce it. It's more like natural laws. It's the law of gravity, right? It's there's
No,
not an
because right, because one way to think about this is that the the prince of the fallen angels will enforce it. You have
right.
to, but that's more mythological, I think. This kind of, I mean, this may also be mythological, but what I mean is this makes it has an internal logical consistency to
Right.
it. It
hmm
makes sense.
mm.
Right. Okay.
But
So, yeah, yeah, yeah,
we could just go on forever, obviously, because it's really fascinating and interesting stuff, and it's just a great film, and it's one of my, definitely my top 10 all-time favorite horror films. So,
and I
uh,
think we've been discussing this at least for, I don't know, a few months now, and we've
oh
at least
yeah,
watched it 10 times because of
right.
these discussions, and probably are going to go back and watch it again.
Oh yeah,
And
I'll watch it every year at least because it's great.
no, we've been watching it much more than that. No, I mean, much more frequently than that, because I think we've watched this at least twice now,
Oh, well,
or
yeah.
thrice.
We
Just
started talking about it for sure.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I think we talked about this often, good film is like good literature or good philosophy. Every time you read it, you potentially are going to see something that you missed
Yes.
before, right? New
And
idea.
it's also a space where we can like try ideas out, like
Mm-hmm.
this whole contract thing. We're just talking, and the
Right.
film is a good space within which you can try these things out and see if it makes sense. And once if it does, it opens a new angle uh, uh, through which the film now can be rewatched.
Right.
So that's also an interesting element to this.
Yeah.
Yes. So I think the key thing in that last uh, section, the video, is the fragility and vulnerability of Paimon, and the fact that he has to be nursed into his role. That's the
Mm.
interesting thing, and yeah, and the fact that he is called Charlie also potentially opens up a lot of interesting things about his memory, his what he
Mm-hmm.
remembers, his own
Mm-hmm.
uh, journey in all this, how much he is in control, all these things. So I think we kind of did it quite did justice to these complex possibilities that 1 minute of that of that scene
Oh, yeah.
opens up, you know. So
Right. And it's a
yeah.
lot of things I haven't heard anyone else really talking about. Not that I've listened to a lot, but yeah.
Yeah, no, some of these things are uh, new, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And especially the idea of the Roman uh, takeover of Christianity. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
The entire angle of seeing Paimon as really not this super powerful demon, but as a fragile, uh, broken even entity that adds a lot of complexity to his character, because he's not the typical demon. He's
Right.
real in that sense. He's so interesting. I even like his form. He's
Right.
like a slender
Mm-hmm.
and then the fact that he has this soft jingle. I don't know what
Right.
the word for that is, or
It's
what the
bells, I think. You're supposed to hear bells
bells,
when he approaches.
bells.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And that he's so unthreatening in that way, but that was also in its own way very threatening. And so he's an interesting, complex character here. And I think all these additional aspects that we are discussing adds to his complexity, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
So it's possible we'll return to this film at some point.
it's highly likely.
Yeah, especially if we do end up doing a Midsommar, and which is also Ari
We
Aster.
should. We should.
It
Yeah.
could be that we want to come back. But I thought that the last thing I would do here was just see what the Keys of Solomon say about Himon.
Oh yes, please. That would be a good.
So Pimon confers upon the magician that conjures him the power to influence and control those he wishes to subjugate. He will produce familiars that serve the possessor, and he can bring great honor and wealth upon The Conjurer. So those are the things. I mean, Ari, I knew Ari had done his research, right? And so that fits right in there. And so it's interesting because, like I said, because I have
he has changed the sigil though, right? You told me that
yes, yeah, because I have photos of all the sigils, and what did we determine that he
has only
changed
3 heads
from
and
4 figures to 3, I think.
yeah,
Was that it? The traditional, let me
correct.
just confirm. Yeah, so I have it right here. The traditional sigil, because when you look at that sigil, it looks like people, obviously abstract people.
Yes.
The one in the film, though, it's 3 of them. And in the original sigil, which I'm looking at here, it's 4. It looks to be 4.
Is this superstition on his part, which would
That's
be
a great
awesome?
question. Did he change that just on the off chance that he might invoke something? I
That
had
would
no,
that
that's
that would
yeah.
be, if that is true, that would be awesome. The
Yeah,
fact that he
actually
respects
it
it
would
enough to
insofar as it's better safe than sorry is
right,
this.
and it also reflects a respect
Yeah,
for his
right,
what he's doing. So
right.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, thanks so much. That was great. And hopefully people enjoy it. Just
amazing discussion. Yeah,
something different that we hope to do now and then. Talk about film and please like and subscribe. And
please.
we will hopefully be getting more and more content as time allows. So yeah. So thank you, Bharatwaj.
Thank you, Suzanne.
All right.
Until next time.
Until next time. See you later.
See you.
Bye.